So we have over 3 weeks worth of spoilers to go through for ARH8 Awaiting Fates. So let's do the catch up today. A huge shout out to our channel members for supporting what we do here. If you want to get involved with the channel and the Dice Commando community, please consider joining as a channel member. Remember, these videos are only possible with your support. You can show that support with a like, a subscribe, and by leaving us a comment and sharing your feedback. Community first, and go Commando. Hey there, my Star Wars Destiny friends. Welcome back to Dice Commando and the Commando cast, and happy Destiny Friday. Now, the first rule of spoiler season is that as soon as you shoot a spoiler recap video, another spoiler drops. So you're welcome. More spoilers are certainly on their way, and that's awesome. But what I do want to do today is go through the spoilers. Now, to be in full disclosure, I'm shooting this on March 19th. That's because I'm going to be in the morning you're watching this. I'll already be in LA for the Flesh and Blood Pro Tour event. Looking forward to that. And, you know, if you're into that, you can tune in and try to catch me. There will be a panel Friday afternoon talking about Commoner. It's going to be a great time down there, and I'll be doing updates all weekend. But for the Destiny folks, let's get back to focus, and let's start going through the spoilers. Now, Baylan is 001, number 1 in the set, which is super awesome. We did talk about him last week, got that spoiler from the folks, right? Now, you can look at that big, I wouldn't say it's a chonky die, because we've seen chonkier die, but it's a really good die for 18 points. And with resilience, that makes it even better, right? Remembering it can't just get board wiped. And again, he has a power action that lets him roll it in and potentially get some additional value out of it. -1, of course. Okay. But still, it's, you know, a 2.5 die character, I guess, in that case, in some cases. Okay. So very, very good there. And then, of course, the other piece of that puzzle, Shin Hati, and that's, I should say, the direct puzzle, because you know Baylan is going to be very pairable with some other folks, okay? And again, the resilience keyword allowing us to collectively return back a little more safely to larger characters. You know, we shouldn't say bigs, because bigs are generally like the 22, 23, but the 18s, I like it, okay? Shin Hati we've seen, and to be fair, we've talked about her twice because she was spoiled, and then we had the Baylan episode, so I don't want to labor on her too much. I'm going to be very attentive as the rest of the set is spoiled as to see what we can do with blue villains, right? It's a very non-traditional blue villain pilots is what I mean, right? Blue villain pilots is a very non-traditional archetype. So I'm wondering if they're going to do something with that, expand on it a little bit more. To be fair though, she doesn't necessarily have to be a blue villain pilot archetype. She might just be, you know, it's very common to see 3-wide, 4-wide, even pilot decks. That's typically been more of a hero type thing, just trying to go wide and just kind of board spam. She could fit into that though, right? I mean, she's at the right price point. If they had something like that for villains, go 4-wide. Be very interesting to see how that goes. Very easy to do a rainbow or something like that. I imagine they'll probably be on top of that to prevent that from happening, because generally those decks do quite well from a value standpoint and kind of overrun the meta for a little bit. But we'll see, right? If it's balanced correctly, it could be super cool. All right, the other card we've seen, Exploit Weakness. A lot of my spoilers evidently were front-loaded in terms of the numbers. We are going in number order. But Exploit Weakness fits into, to a certain extent, kind of the Baylan package. It looks to be, you know, the big blue removal of sorts of the set. So choose a player and turn 2 of their dice to side showing blank, then choose a different player and resolve 1 of their dice that we're showing a focus, right? So it does require to resolve it, which is interesting, right? Make it to focus, okay? So you get so if you were to use it on them, for example, your opponent being them, you could in theory remove 1 of their big dice and flip several other dice to blanks, right? But you'd have to target yourself on the other, okay? And actually that's, so choose a player and turn 2 of their dice to side showing blank. So if you don't have, so say I have no dice out, can I choose myself? I actually don't know the answer to that. Choose turn. So because it doesn't say turn 2 dice, because it doesn't say, it says choose a player, not choose 2 dice. So I think you can. I think you could choose a player that has no dice, actually. I think that could work. Let me know in the comments below if you think that can work or not. I think that can work. Right, awaiting fate, the plot to balance out Shin and Baylan. They're both on there, so it's not even a secret. After the action phase begins, place 1 resource on this card, and then essentially blow this up and remove up to 3 to turn that many dice to side showing a blank. But then you get another action point. That's pretty cool. Okay, there are 2 Fiend Fighter. This is pretty legit, right? This is a pretty legit 2-drop vehicle, or 2-drop support. 1 gun, 2 indirect, the disrupt within the 2 specials, which are 2 damage or potentially more. So it's a 1, 1.8, 1.6, somewhere in there, 2 for an indirect with a disrupt and a blank. It's pretty good, right? It's pretty good. And if you do have it with Shin Hati, you come in, you can potentially not blank someone, turn your character dice ISO 0. Shin has 2 specials. Not too shabby, right? I'm very curious to see where this is going to go. Right, getting into new content for the channel, we have Thrawn, Strategic Mind. Okay, so he's a 13-16. That's pretty mid-affordable, right, with 13 health. 3 melee, 2 focus, 1 discard, 2 discard. That seems right on point. Resource and a blank. Character leader. After you activate this character, notice no resilience or anything like that, right? But after you activate this character, you may look an opponent's hand and place 1 card from their hand on top of their deck. Then that opponent may deal 2 indirect damage to themselves to draw a card. That's very cool, right? So I like creating situations where your opponent has to make hard decisions. So getting into their hand and taking away what you know will be a key piece, well, then they can get it back at the cost of 2 indirect damage. But like, let's say you take away a key piece of removal or something like that. Well, now they have to pay 2 indirect effectively to then get the card back, to then pay for it and remove. It's kind of neat. This is very creative. So props to whoever came up with this one. I think that's really, really, really cool. And again, it's, right on point with Thrawn of discards and getting in their head and in their hand and their head at the same time simultaneously. Right, long live the Empire. So this is 021. It's a 0 cost event. Choose and do one of the following. Discard an event from your hand to remove a die not showing damage. Discard a non-event card from your hand to remove a die showing damage. So I have to say probably this doesn't see a ton of play outside of like maybe a specific archetype that wants you to do discarding or go down in size, because discarding 2 cards to remove a die not showing damage, I don't know, but maybe there's things to it. Yeah, because this itself is an event and a card, right? That seems steep to me. Seems steep to me. Right, Imperial Security, so also a 0-drop event intel. Reveal the top card of a deck. Then you may spend resources up to that card's cost to remove that many die to a maximum of 2. So that is definitely, in order for this to work, you definitely have to have top deck knowledge. 0 question, because there's no way you're playing an event for the risk of not being able to do anything, right? So this definitely needs to have that knowledge. So this is going to be a card we're going to have to watch going forward. Spend resources, although do keep in mind though, right, just put in context, is up to. So basically as long as it's not a 0, you get a 1 for 1, 2 for 2. And it doesn't have to be like, oh, I flipped a 4, I can't pay for it, I get 0. Right? So you can at least go, okay, as long as I get a 4, I can go up to that. But again, I think you need the knowledge to be able to risk it. Chimera, super cool. Capital ships, right? That's something that definitely has been screaming. It's been, 2 expansions now on capital ships? Maybe even more? I think it's at least been 2, but it hasn't been super expanded on. So it's good to see capital ship. We'll see another one later. Okay. So Chimera, 3 gun, 4 gun, 3 indirect, 2 shield, 2 resources, and a blank. Okay, you hate to see the blank, but that die is really good. Like really, really, really good, even for a 4-drop. After you activate this support, if this die did not roll damage, discard a random card from an opponent's hand. So you have a 50% chance to discard a card on activation. Power action, reveal the top card of your deck, or any deck instead, if you spot Thrawn, and you can play that card if able. And that's just a power action, doesn't require activation, anything like that. This card is really good. I believe. I think this card looked really good. Like, super good. I mean, you've got... It does a lot. Like, it does a lot. Seemed really good to me. Right, the Night Troopers, I keep messing up what these folks are called, and I will remember that going forward, all right? So 2-drop, 1 gun, 2 gun, 2 indirect. Disrupt, resource, and a blank. So this is effectively a trooper die, right? We've very I mean, they're doing the right thing in ARH, or at least I think I know where they're trying to go here. And, it's the clone trooper die, basically, right? So what I'm saying, I'd mean with like the 1 gun, 2 gun, 2 indirect, right? It's a very standard trooper type die that you'd see on a character, right? But after a trooper character you control is defeated, this support gains 1 of that character's character dice. This screams some sort of like minion deck, right? Trying to play, because think about it. It doesn't say that this support can only have 1 die. It says that after the character goes down, it gains 1 of their die. Therefore, playing this support out when you have a bunch of single die characters, again, your minions or something, whatever you want to call them, this could potentially then in game, if you like, let's say you go 4 wide stormtroopers or something like that, this could come down and potentially be rolling in 4 dice, not from your 4 characters, because then the game would be over, obviously, but its own die plus the 3 characters. I'm not saying that's going to like rule the meta or something, but like that's pretty cool, right? Because it doesn't say to a maximum of 1 die. It says 1 of that character's character die. Very cool. Super cool. Now, to be fair, if you had 2 of these out and there was and you had an elite character out, sure, both of them go, I guess. I mean, I know it works that way, so I guess that's a thing. You do have to count on having both of them out for your big goes down, but you keep the die. This seems like really, really, really good value to me. Really good value. But again, it's got to be a trooper, so it's, there's a check and balance there. Okay. All right. Gorion, I don't know. Pirate King. 14, 17 with 13. Okay. Now, let's talk through the die as we go. So 3 indirect for an indirect, 2 focus for free, 2 discard for an indirect. That seems about on par. And then kind of has the pirate scoundrel thing of 1 resource and then 2 resource for an indirect. Generally, I mean, previously in the past, it had been for a resource, something like that. But this is in case of an indirect, okay? Leader, pirate, scoundrel. After you resolve a die showing a cost, deal 1 indirect damage to an opponent. Okay, so it opens up lines there, but he is the 14-17, which is relevant with some of the other characters we've seen that have effects on their pay sides. Okay, and after you activate this character, if an opponent has an exhausted character and no dice showing damage, you may resolve 1 of your dice showing a cost, decreasing its cost by 1. So that's super conditional, but 50% chance of effectively, not only do you get it for free, but it's kind of an ambush, right? Kind of. Roll in resolve, that for sure, right? And he'll be rolling in, I mean, if you're doing this, probably he's rolling in 2 dice, right? So you'd have to do the non-inclusive, you'd have roughly a 75% chance of hitting. Right, a pay side, I mean, to be able to do it. Right, so you time it right. Again, there's a couple conditions on there, so we'll have to see what kind of support this individual gets. But there's potential there. There's potential. Right, we have Thrifty. Resolve 1 of your dice showing a cost to remove a die. That's pretty good for 0, right? You get a resolution. Based on what we've seen, it's either going to cost you to resolve that die, or you have to take damage to resolve that die. Completely fair. But you kind of get a 2-for-1 deal. And you get to remove. So, almost a 3-for-1 deal. All right, this card is... I thought about just doing this card last. I'm doing, like I said, I'm doing them in numeric order. I thought about doing less because this card is super freaking cool. Super freaking cool. So, Ahsoka Tano, Jedi Remnant, 15-18 with 14 health, so on par with what we've been seeing. But look at that die, which has, I mean, I guess the die itself doesn't have resilience, but the character does. So Ahsoka is a 2 melee, 3 melee, 2 shield, 3 reroll, 1 resource, and a blank. And she's got kind of a Plo Koon thing. Decrease the cost of the first upgrade with lightsaber in its title you play on this character each game by 1. Okay, so you got to be careful on how you do it, but, you know, it's -1 resource. It's pretty good. Then power action, this is phenomenal. Power action, resolve one of your weapon dice showing damage, either increasing its value by 1 or resolving it against 2 different characters. Now, the one potential caveat on this is that it's not uncommon for blue weapon dice to have modifiers, right? Which you would not be able to do in this case because you have to resolve the die itself. It's not when you resolve, meaning because you would be, when you resolve, you could do it with a base. You have to resolve that die as part of the power action, so it has to be a base. That's, again, that's not super restrictive. I just want to throw it out there. Okay, but the value that you can, you either get 1 more out of it, or, I mean, basically, I guess you could be resolving a 1, I suppose, in which case you'd only get 1 more out of it. But if you're resolving against 2 characters, if you resolve a 2 against 2 characters, you get +2, effectively, right? This is super cool. Also, I love the art on this. This card is absolutely freaking gorgeous. I kind of want the art for this for a thumbnail. It's so good. And this is a gorgeous, gorgeous card. And well done. And she looks super good. Super good. The 2-3 on an 18-point character. Oh, so good. Resilient. Oh, it's everything you want. This card is just... All right, Kestis, Jedi Survivor, 14-17-13. So just put that into perspective. We'll go back to Ahsoka. Put that in perspective. We then have an interesting die. So 3 gun, 2 melee, 2 shield, resource, a special. The special is deal 1 damage to a character. You may reveal a yellow card from your hand to deal 1 damage to a character. You may reveal a blue card from your hand to heal 1 damage from a character. Then the blank. After setup, this character gains the color yellow. Of course, remember, right, the whole thing, deck building restrictions would still need to be paired with a yellow in order to have the yellow card in your deck by which to use the special. Not super big deal, but it's restrictive in that, but then becomes a yellow, which is kind of a big deal for spotting, right? So anyway, you know, we're not cracking any eggs on the dual color thing. We've gone down that before with Ayla and many other colors, right? We had Palpatine and all that. So awesome stuff here. This character looks pretty good. Again, we'll have to see what the potential pairings are, but again, you have yellow and there's tricky tricks in yellow and has guns. So like he can pew like again with modifiers and like there's no shortage of redeploy guns. There's serious potential here. And it lets you bring blue. Seems pretty good. Right. Shielding stands for 1. Activate a blue character you control to remove a die. Then, if the die removed was showing damage, give that character 1 shield. This seems very in line with, the name escapes me, but there was a base turret card where I used it in base turret where you'd activate the Guardian character. It might have been just, yeah, it was just, I'll put it up. I'll figure it out. I can't remember, but it's very similar to that in that you activate them and you do a thing. Okay. This card's also cool. Luke Skywalker's lightsaber. So it's a 3-drop up weapon, obviously, but it does have a redeploy, which is not irrelevant. So 2 melee plus 3 melee. focus, 2 shield, resource, and a blank. So that's not super good for a 3, right? In terms of like other 3s we've seen. But while it's on Luke, he has resilience, which is pretty cool. But after you exhaust this upgrade, you may roll this die in your pool. So you get 2 uses out of it, but it's got to be paired in the right archetype to where you're doing the exhausting. Okay. And we've already seen, like we saw Den and Bo, there was some exhausting in like that little archetype. Obviously they're yellow, but you get the point, right? It looks to me like the exhausting upgrades is going to be a bit of a sub-theme in this set. So there's certainly, I mean, they're not doing this if there's, right? Because you can't exhaust this card on its own. So there's certainly going to be more cards coming in which exhausting is a thing, right? And exhausting specific upgrades is what I mean. Okay. Grief Karga. So this one's been out for a while. There's been some chatter about this, but Grief Karga High Magistrate. So the red Grief, Governor of Grief. Okay. Griefy Governor. 2 gun, 1 focus, 1 discard, resource, 2 resource for a resource, and a blank. Has Charm, though, as a leader scoundrel. Okay, so 10-13 with Charm, right? We've very much seen that the Charm characters kind of fit into that low, like 3-wide kind of, I'm not going to say control yes deck, but, set you up for more of like a longer game type, try and mess with your opponent type deck. Okay. So after an opponent draws a card during the action phase for the first time each round, you may resolve one of your dice, increasing its value by 1. Okay. And remember, with the back and forth, I mean, that's not abnormal that could happen just naturally. But power action, remove 1 charm token from a character to force that character's controller to draw a card. Okay, so this is not good just for your ability. But remember, the way with the Destiny works, especially on the hero side, trying to get stuff out of hand, sometimes you have discards on the table you can't use. There you go. Okay, so Grief seems to fit right into that little archetype. The only thing I think you don't care about necessarily is the gun, but it's got the value of 2, which is relevant in some situations. Okay. Moving on to the next capital ship that I spoke about earlier, the Hammerhead Corvette. So this die is not... On first take, it doesn't look quite as good as Chimera. That's a pretty good die. So 3 gun, 4 indirect, 2 focus, okay, 3 shield. 3 shield, I've never been a super big fan of the 3 shield. Yes, it can level up a character, or not level up, full up a character. But a lot of times, sometimes you can't get full value out of it, right, with a 3 cap. 2 resource and a blank. Power action, discard the support from play to either discard a support from play or remove up to 2 dice, draw a card. It's definitely a in the pinch type situation. I think it definitely fits the theme of what the Hammerhead Corvette did in Rogue One, or Hammerhead Corvettes, I suppose, in Rogue One. Makes sense. That's more of a pinch play, but it might be able to swing, and then again, being able to draw the card on top of it, it's pretty cool, right? So 4 resources, you're certainly not doing it right, you're not playing it to do that, is my point. You're going to play it when you can, get a couple uses out of it, gives you a bailout. I think that's when that will see play. And by that, I mean the ability, okay? Medic, I really like this card. It's very creative. So it's a upgrade title, okay? So that's why, right, if you look at this as a 2-drop support, which I did first. When I first saw this, for some reason in my head, it was like trooper support. Obviously, that's not what this is. It's an upgrade title, right? So it's got the +1 gun. That's why that makes sense, is like in the title, like, promotion and cards like that we've seen in the past. So +1, you have the shield, the resource. You have 2 specials, a blank. After you heal damage from a character, you may exhaust this upgrade to heal 1 damage from a character, and then the special is heal 1 damage from a character. So you've got your special and then +1, but it's not just contingent on the special, because there are certainly other ways to heal characters. So this is very interesting. And I think there's another one where, I mean, to be clear, I think there are plenty of options with which to get mileage out of this already in the existing card pool. But I would think there's probably more coming. And then someone who knows, is this Kix? I think it's Kix. The clone, I mean. All right, Bo, I don't want to go too much into her because we talked about her quite a bit with both Casero and Echo. I really like this card. Okay, so 2-gun, all right, it's got the Mando thing, but it's the power action. Remove 1 shield from a card you control to resolve 1 of your dice, and then when you resolve 1 of the dice, you can give a character 1 shield. So you've got the bouncing thing. It gives you a little bit of like problem solving on how you have to do things and bounce back and forth. I think it's really neat as the build around archetype. And then we go right into Dengar, who's the auto pair there, right? Because Bo is the 15. And again, I'll link the video if I remember to do it. I'll link the video, but it was 3 weeks ago at this point is when we spoiled the pair of these. All right. And then Den, we've got the 2-gun, the 2 melee, no 2 indirect. We do have the special that deals 2 damage or 3 if there's an exhausted upgrade, right? So you're starting again. It's very much becoming clear that the exhausted card is some sort of sub theme within the set, which is very cool. His 12 health is correct at being a 12-15. I mean, it's a bummer, obviously, that doesn't have more, but like that's the correct value, okay? And after this character gains 1 or more shields, right? Works with Bo, exhaust and upgrade, and then of course, remember his pistol, right? The IB-94. Okay, fits right into this. All right, honor and loyalty. So 2-drop event, yellow. Play only if all characters on your team share a color, right? So this comes back to the Kestis thing. Okay, definitely playing this more than likely to fit into that. Remove a die, then you may turn a die to any side. If the die you just turned was in your pool, you may resolve it. That's, ooh, I mean, remember Kestis, I mean, just because we were talking about, he's got that big old 3-gun. All right, so he comes out, rolls like crud. Well, I've got this nice little 2 thing that I remove a die and then smack you for 3. Works for me. Works for me. All right, Merrin, the adaptive Night Sister. So this is at least the second version of Merrin we've seen. I think that's only the second. So she's a 10-13 with 10, right? So when you see that, you start thinking, okay, it does work with Cal, by the way, right? Yellow, 10-13. Okay, it's almost like it's a build around potentially, okay? So 2-gun, 2 melee, disrupt, 3 reroll. The resource of blank after setup gains a color blue, which is very interesting with Cal because now you've got a yellow-blue team that is all blue and all yellow. It's kind of cool. After you play a card with an odd cost, look at that Night Sister stuff, you may place 1 shield on a non-plot card in play. Power action, remove 1 shield from a non-plot card you control to turn a hero or villain die to a side showing a value of 0. Now, one thing that I neglected to mention, which is kind of a really big deal with her, is that she's neutral. Neutral character. That's a thing. Right, Prospering Galaxy. For 2, resolve any number of your dice, each showing a different symbol. Then if you just resolve 5 or more dice, draw 2 cards and heal 2 damage from a character. There's a lot going on there. Right, resolve any number of your dice, each showing a different symbol. The one question I have, so I don't think it matters anymore because I actually seem to recall there being like some sub-clarification written when Gandork was still around about this. But traditionally, this would have said resolve any number of your dice in any order. But I think it can't be written that way because it has to be showing a different symbol on the trigger, right? So it's not like you could resolve a focus and turn them to different symbols. I think that's why it's written this way, right? So I'm pretty sure that when you play, you have to declare what you're doing. And I think that makes sense, okay? So it's still very interesting though, right? You're probably not, I mean, if you have other dice in the pool, you might do your focus, but it doesn't say you have to do 5, right? But like how many times you're going to have like 7 dice in your pool? I don't know. Actually, these days, maybe. Actually, that's fair. So we'll have to see on this one. But I think this one, I mean, the payoff's big. And the ability that you could like, I mean, at the very least, you get mixed damage with your Mandalorians and you're trying to figure out how the heck you're going to, take 3 actions to resolve 6 damage. Well, I don't know if that's worth 2. Because you don't really get anything out of it unless you resolve 5 die. It's interesting though. All right, Smuggler's Run. I like the art on this. It's like, ooh, me? Ambush. Resolve one of your scoundrel vehicle or pilot die showing a resource, re-rolling it instead of removing it. So what's cool about this is you've got one of those out showing a resource. You play this with ambush, it re-rolls. You could potentially resolve it, right? Potentially a dual resolve on a re-roll. Smack him for damage. Pull a discard. Card's cool. Card's super cool. Right, the Gonk droid, 1-drop support droid. These are always dangerous, okay? Focus, disrupt, discard, shield, resource, and a blank. After you resolve this die, you may turn a die to its first side. Well, that's a very R2-D2 shout out. Now, isn't it? Okay, we saw Kestis with that big ol' 3 on his top side. Seems relevant. I'm sure there are others. We saw Ahsoka was a 2 melee, 3 melee. But this isn't too bad, right? It's got no... I mean, think about that. Just aside from what the die is, it has 5 base sides. And they're like, are they really going to remove... And again, it's when you resolve it. So, like, are they really going to remove your 1 shield? Are they really going to remove your disrupt? Generally, they don't. And then you get to flip on top of that. I mean, the focus thing's really interesting too, because you focus another die. This little dude's, I think this little dude's pretty good. I think it's pretty good. All right, and that takes us back to Baylan. So that's the gauntlet of what we have so far. Like I said, by the time this comes out, there'll likely be another one or so, and I hope that is the case. But hopefully you've been letting me know in the comments below as we've been going through this. We're at a little over a half hour, so thanks for dealing with me on this log through that. But that's how spoiler season goes. So anyway, folks, have a great weekend. Enjoy everything. Just roll 3s and go Commando.